If you haven't heard of Anchor by Spotify, you got to check it out. I've been using it for my podcast and it's been great. I can edit, I can record, I can distribute it to every platform I need, including Apple Podcasts and Spotify. It's everything that you need to record your podcast in one place. You can use it on your phone app or you can use it on your computer. So you really need to go check it out. You can download it at your app store or you can download it at anchor.fm. Happy recording. And welcome to EQaboveIQ-Parenting with Emotional Intelligence and Healing the Inner Child. My name is Trina Casey and I'm your host. Today I start this episode off with something that I never thought I'd see, but I'm quite active on LinkedIn where I have a pretty supportive group of people. And I was attacked by a psychologist this last week. Basically questioning my credentials and all that stuff. I've never at any point in my coaching practice said that I was a licensed psychologist. Matter of fact, I have steadfastly been against it. And one of the reasons why is that the field of psychology has failed my community, and my community being women, and my community being a person of color, Black woman, it has failed. And recently, this information came to light after this post I made, and one of my supporters, who I appreciate, sent me a link to the APA.org apology for racism. And I'm only going to read a couple lines just because I already knew this, and it's part of the reason why the whole field of psychology is steeped in colonialistic and racism and patriarchy. And so it starts out, apology to people of color for APA's role in promoting, perpetuating, and failing to challenge racism, racial discrimination, and human hierarchy in the United States. And it was a resolution adopted by the APA Council of Representatives on October 29th, 2021. Now, I'm only going to read the first line or the first paragraph because you can go and you can look this up. And this episode is going to be related, but not related. So the American Psychology Association failed in its role leading the discipline of psychology, was complicit in contributing to systemic inequities, and hurt many through racism, racial discrimination, and denigration of people of color, thereby falling short on its mission to benefit society and improve lives. APA is profoundly sorry, accepts responsibility for, and owns the actions and inactions of APA itself. The discipline of psychology and individual psychologists who stood as leaders for the organization and field. Period. It's a good apology, but now what are you going to do? How are we going to make amends? Here's the thing about the whole field of all scientists. It is entrenched in colonialism and racism, thereby. And, when I started studying and it just didn't sit well with me, I said, I can't. In clear conscience, perpetuate this. And so I feel so much better in that decision. This admittance means I was correct with my feelings. And I hope moving forward, the trainings, the licensure, whatever it takes to be stamped and a professional expert, whatever, gets changed to include people who actually need it the most due to the deep trauma caused by the oppression of people of color, Black people, slavery, and much more. And as slavery still continues all over the world, yes, it does. In places like Saudi Arabia, in Arabic countries of Black people. And we're a long way away from solving the problems regarding racism. And gosh, it's just so hard to explain to my son sometimes why people do what they do. And until colonialistic and imperialistic powers like United Kingdom and the US and even China start coming to their part in it, then we're not going to have much change. And unfortunately, I feel most of the leaders of the world right now are not mentally stable. They're going through and they're doing and perpetuating the same system after year, century after century. And until we change that, the process is not going to change. So, the fields of science, including sociology, biology, psychology, of course, they've been steeped in this sickness for a long time. The ego is a powerful thing. And the ego of people who do not and cannot look at the whole is clearly evident. I had a conversation with a sociology student, and we were talking about how and why there's such this concerted effort by people in these different fields, the leaders in these fields, to keep them separate. Meaning sociology is one thing, biology is another, psychology is another. And they're so deeply interconnected. And, I can prove they're interconnected. And so I had this conversation with this Chinese sociology major, and her eyes lit up after we started really talking and digging in. And I started asking these particular questions to her. I said, imagine you are a Native American or African person, and you're minding your own business. You may be thriving. You have plenty of food. You have plenty of resources to move yourself forward and to raise your family. And you have time. Okay. You have time to spend with your family. Once you get done with your few hours or one day of laborious work, whether it's plowing, planting, hunting, it doesn't matter what it is. You're done. And then all of a sudden you look on your shores and you see big boats from Europeans. You don't know who they are. You don't know why they are. You're just kind of bewildered, maybe a little curious, but also afraid. Then they get off their boats and they start shooting at you or killing you with their diseases or whatever. I could go, and that raping your families and your children and your women and starving you. Because what they do is they get off their boats and start killing everything and everything that moves, animals. If you're the Native Americans, they're killing your buffalo and taking the pelts, the beaver pelts, everything they just destroy and overconsume and capitalize on. But you're starving. You start to starve. And if you are a kind Native person, you practice something called Ubuntu, which is in Africa, basically treat others as you would be treated, with respect, love, and they take advantage of that. They lie to you after they've taken everything from you and tell you, we're going to put you on these reservations. You used to be free. You used to be able to go to a plot of land on a planet that you honored, respected, and paid reverence to. And now they say it's theirs. They're crazy. You're like, how can this be yours? There's no ownership of land or people, right? Well, not these people. These mentally ill people say they own everything. They're delusional, delusions of grandeur, but deeply insecure and fear-based. So they keep destroying everything and enslaving everyone. And how do you feel? The answers were fear, anger. And then we got down to hunger. You're starving. Even if you hide or run away, you can't get to the food you need because all your buffalo, all your beaver, all your animals that you used to eat to sustain yourself, your crops, vegetation, it's all gone. And when you're starving, you go through a biological process. And that biological process, you need nutrients to make your body move and function and your brain function. So you lose weight, therefore you're no longer as strong. You can't fight back as easily. You're not as nimble. You don't usually make very good decisions when you're in that state. I think of the term hangry. Then you lash out at people too, because now you've got an emotional state, the emotional state of fear, the emotional state of sadness. You become depressed. You've been completely oppressed. Everything that you knew to be healthy, true, and free is gone, has been taken away from you. It's been taken away from you for greed and capitalism and the aggrandization. There would be a time where these people, all people, could go and be self-sustainable. But every time you try to sustain yourself, somebody comes and steals it from you. Every time I think of, Black Wall Street in Tulsa, Oklahoma, they said to Black people in America, you have to go do for your own if you're not going to go be our slaves. So they do, and they thrive. They don't just survive, they thrive. They make their own banks. They create their own companies. They create their own restaurant. Everybody is doing well. One very well-placed lie, because from jealous people, your whole town and everything that you built is blown to smithereens from sadistic, jealous, and inept people. Because as soon as we stopped helping, they started dying. They started starving because they couldn't figure it out. So all of these things all have one thing in common, and then that's fear-based insecurity and an inability to learn. Obviously, history keeps repeating itself. I think of the UK right now and all of the economic and social issues the United Kingdom are having at this very moment. And it's due to an indignant desire to be right, righteousness. They will burn down their own country and government to be right, to prove a point. It's infantile. It's also extremely, extremely stupid. So that's the best word I can think of. It's extremely stupid. Here you have all these resources of people from different cultures willing to help you, but you have to be the top person on the ladder, on the top rung of the ladder, purely out of ego, purely out of ineptitude, because you can't think straight. Something's wrong. That cycle from starvation to depression caused by oppression, because you always have somebody's boot on your neck. You are always in fight or flight. It affects your health. It affects, high blood pressure is huge in African American and Black communities. It's in the DNA in many ways. So explaining these concepts in an interdisciplinary way is the best way. We no longer can, hold on to the ego of Professor XYZ and poo. We really need to stop the golden calf syndrome, the expert syndrome, the white is right. And this, people on the pale scale, you gotta stop. We're all in this together. We got one planet, and the people of the indigenous world have been telling you for a very long time, you're going to destroy yourselves. And war after war that aggrandizes and makes people like BlackRock, companies like BlackRock, rich. For what? We won't have anything. Oh, we're all going to go to Mars? Okay. Elon Musk has done a great job with Twitter on his decision making. It doesn't work anymore because the grand awakening, the most of the populace is coming to see that all of this systematic and systemic oppression is undermining any type of chance for survival. Sorry, this is a little bit of a dark one. I'm just telling the truth. It's just flowing out right now. And so what are we going to do? Well, first of all, we're going to stop attacking each other. First of all, we're going to make sure everybody's fed because we do have an abundance. It's just a system of scarcity that has been put in place in order to make things more expensive. This inflation stuff needs to stop. It's all perpetuated. It's just making wealthy people wealthy, and they're crying and we don't have workforce. We need plain and simple stop. I just read about a phenomena going on in China, and I was quite impressed that these Gen Z students and recent graduates are doing something in China called tangping. Hope I said that correctly for all my Chinese listeners. What is tangping? Tangping is a passive resistant movement that was launched in around February 2020. But it didn't really take off until 2021, May 2021. And then they're saying this: I need to think about my life. I quit my job. I went to this or that region of China. I went on a temple retreat. I came back and decided to quit and get a part-time job for a delivery job. That I do 2-3 times a week. I spend the rest of my time on my hobbies. Oh, that is exactly how life is supposed to be. There's been this objectification for production model that's been going. In every country in the world, people are literally losing their minds. They're losing their lives, and now they're reassessing. Bravo to the people of China, this younger generation, this need for absurd, needless, meaningless competition. I'm not competing with anybody, and you shouldn't either. You should live your life. You should be peaceful. You don't need the Porsche or whatever it is. You don't need the huge house. You don't need any of that stuff to be happy. Actually, you just need to be able to basically put a roof over your head and be able to feed yourself and your children. The competition stuff has to stop. But this is what they use to propel you, to push you. Don't you want to be like me? No, I don't want to be like Elon Musk. I don't want to destroy people's livelihoods and families because I think I know better and everything else. I don't want that. I want to be free. Just like you. You want to be free too. We have to work harder at having simplicity, of appreciating the smaller things. We have to teach our children that as well. Enough with this huge, big everything, especially in the United States. You don't need a car that looks like a tank. You don't need that. You don't need any of that. What you do need to is get to point A to point B. Okay? So simplify your life. Learn how to do things to be self-sufficient. There was a time we could go get a plot of land, not for millions of dollars. Just it was practically free. Sometimes free at all. You had to pay for your building materials, or you went and chopped a few trees and built a house or a hut. I don't know. I wasn't there. I don't know what that was like. But I can imagine that you probably created and had skills. And then you did these things. Now, I'm not talking about going back to the olden days where, we've got technology now. Let's start creating the technology that helps all people live well. It doesn't have to be just millionaires and billionaires. There's no reason whatsoever that we all can't live productive and healthy lives that don't work us to death. So, anyways, that's the end of this episode. I really wanted to talk about what happened, Yeah. People will attack your credentials, your whatever, when they feel insecure or they feel like you're taking something from them. But the truth is that things that are going to come to you is because they were meant for you. And things that don't, won't. So be kind. Be supportive. Go to thisreallifebooks.com. Check out my books that teach emotional intelligence to children. Click on the coaching tab there as well if you need support. And don't forget to go to Family Trauma Rehabilitation Retreat as well. I am hosting a retreat in Mexico where I'll be offering a lot of healing for family members. It's a 2, 3, 4 or larger trip. So it's not a solo sort of healing trip. This is about getting your family and people who you care about in on this healing thing. The more, the better. And it's only going to be 15 spots. So you're going to need to sign up sooner than later. And I have created a payment system in order to make it convenient. I know a lot of us are still kind of reeling from COVID. So start now, sign up now, and you can be fully paid off by October of next year. I hope this helps. I hope my podcast is doing something positive in your life and, shifting your mindset. And, most of all, be blessed. Thank you for listening.